Here are Ryan's top 3 favorite wrestlers. Number 3, Will Ospreay. Number 2, Kenny Omega. Number 1, Master Wada. No way, that can't be right. Damn! Now back to Jack and Ryan on the MonsterCast.
Because he came out with I believe it was an Instagram video. I watched it. I think it was on Instagram. I could have watched it on Twitter, but I think it was from his Twitter. Instagram. Yeah. About his injury, his future. Mentioned that his contract with New Japan is actually up in February of next year, which would play right into the entire storyline that we just laid out for you guys, because Wrestle Kingdom would be like his last big show, kind of like what Kenny did and the Young Bucks did and Jay White did, right? Kind of the same situation. I think that's very smart on New Japan's part as well, because I feel like they set that up on purpose so that you can get one more Wrestle Kingdom out of these guys before they decide if they want to re-sign or not. Now, he says he's very open to re-signing with New Japan. He actually would like to, but all cards are on the table. And the other big note of the video was the fact that he said because of the injury that he's going to have to change up a lot of his style going forward, so that he can wrestle more long-term and not be, basically a flash in the pan, is how he's viewing himself, because he basically feels like he's having imposter syndrome, which he shouldn't have, but I get it. So, what do you think happens come February, dude?
Depends on the offers he gets. I'm sure WWE will offer him something big. I'm sure AEW has him on their radar for sure. The whole thing about
let me just say this before you get started. If AEW is able to snatch this motherfucker up in February of 2024 and they re-sign the Bucks and Omega, there is no roster in the history of wrestling that can touch AEW if they're able to get Ospreay. As soon as they sign Ospreay, if they have the Bucks and Omega with their current roster that they have right now, there is no roster in wrestling history from top to bottom that could fucking touch AEW's roster.
You're gonna have people say, "Oh, what about when the Stone Cold and the Rock and Kurt Angle and Mankind were all together and Shawn Michaels?" And the answer to that is, not a single person on that list is nearly as good a wrestler as one person.
Yeah, I mean, I'm clearly talking work rate. I'm not talking about numbers on TV and all that shit. Like, there's enough merch sales to support my argument that you can talk about merch sales, but AEW sells a shit ton of merch, right? So I don't even think that's really an argument that we need to have. I don't really care, because Austin and The Rock sold a bunch of merchandise. Well, what about Val Venus? He didn't sell a bunch of merchandise, but guess what? Danhausen's selling a fucking bunch of merchandise. So even the people lower on the card that aren't even featured all the time, selling a shit ton of merch. Orange Cassidy and Danhausen are like in the top 10 every fucking week on pro wrestling tees.
Okay, so as far as in history, the problem with the in history thing is that there was a time in New Japan history where all these people were there too. So I don't know how well that works. So then you have to look at people that weren't in New Japan at the same time and compare that roster and see if they outweigh like the Okadas and the other people over there like that at that level. Your Naito.
But I'm just saying they weren't all at that level at the same time in New Japan though. When it was Okada and Kenny Omega in their trilogy, Will Ospreay wasn't high up on the card.
No, but he was high up on the card around the time Kenny was making his exit. And then you still also have Tanahashi. Jay White's whole fucking arc against Kenny Omega obviously was while Kenny Omega was there. So, I mean, I would say that as far as like work rate, having Okada, Tanahashi, and Naito, and Goto, and Ishii, Master Wato, people like that on that roster at the time, puts that era of New Japan in a place where you could make the argument that, like, if you're trying to say throughout history, I don't know that AEW would have the best card, because I don't know what they have that outweighs that. Like, obviously they've got, the Lucha Brothers and Pac and some really good talent like that. Adam Cole obviously wasn't there at the same time.
Their entire deep-ass tag division that's better than New Japan at that time?
Moxley, FTR, so it just depends on which one you see more value in the work rate of. But I think it's more comparable than you're making it sound. But yeah, I mean, you can make the argument that it would be one of the best rosters of all time as far as actual wrestling talent. Sure.
All right, so let's say you're Ospreay. You're about to slow down in ring. Do you think the WWE style would fit you better? Because you if you went to AEW would be expected to be old Ospreay from the fans, because that's what they're used to, and then like you don't want to hear people online, and let's be real, Ospreay does let online comments affect him. He's another person that tweets at a lot of people, right? And quote tweets a lot of stuff. So if you're Ospreay, do you feel like the WWE style would just suit you better if you are to slow down and you just do the cash grab type deal and have solid matches but not like 5 and 6 star matches? Or do you still go see if you can still keep up with the AEW guys and have those matches while still being on like national TV in the US?
Okay, I don't think he's already had to change his style once, obviously, when he went from light to heavy. And his style now is already not as crazy as it used to be. So when he says that he's going to slow it down more, if that just means doing more, hidden blade type shit, like more hard-hitting, striking offense,
or saving them for actual spots in the match where they make sense and not being Jack Evans out there.
Right. Yeah. So that's how I'm looking at it too. Like I don't know that it would change significantly enough to where anybody in AEW would be like, oh yeah, we wish he was doing more. Especially because here's the thing about the fan bases too. They're gonna know why his style has changed because they're all gonna be aware of what he said about it, or at least the majority of them are, and the people that don't know will find out from people telling them to shut the fuck up on Twitter. So I think they're more like amenable to changes in style based on real life shit than I think AEW might be. And I think if AEW signed Ospreay, they're signing him for his name, they're signing him for how popular he was in Japan, and they're signing him for the Ricochet match, and they're going to want him to come in and do the Ricochet match like all the time, until they realize like, oh yeah, like maybe he can't do that anymore. He's a bit heavier now. He's a bit more worn down. So if
I'm Tony Khan, right, and I'm signing you because of your name, it's kind of like WWE signing AJ Styles, right? I don't need you to be Vikino. I don't need you to be AJ Styles in Impact. I need you to be what AJ is right now.
Yeah.
You do a couple of really cool moves, whatever you feel comfortable with that you're able to do to wow people in the moment. But I don't need you to do literally 18 spots in a 5-minute match to try to pop the crowd. Like we want you long term. We want you because Vikino obviously they're doing that because they only have a limited time with Vikino, right? They don't have time to set up storylines and shit because they got him on from another promotion. So you only got so many things that you can do. We're trying to fucking rush that shit out there. That makes sense. Also, you're putting him against other guys that are like dream matches. But if I'm signing Will Ospreay to the dotted line, I want you there as long as possible. I don't want you hurt. I don't want you doing stuff that you're uncomfortable with. If I can get you closer to what AJ Styles was doing in WWE in 2016 or whatever, instead of what Will Ospreay was doing against Ricochet in PWG and New Japan and all that, I would rather you just be the AJ Styles, especially with all the extra added weight and stuff to make you more formidable as a heavyweight guy.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think he could work his style more around things that look good because the other person is taking the crazy bump, as opposed to doing things where it's his move that is the crazy part of whatever like thing he's putting together.
Or I mean, Will Ospreay can make you pop just from a counter too, though. It's not like he has to do the move at the end. You could just do counters and stuff, and you'd be like, "Holy shit, how do you get out of that?" Like there was a time where, he was like, like at Wrestle Kingdom, Kenny Omega, he kept escaping the fucking one-winged angel in different ways and stuff like that. Like everybody's like, "Holy shit, how the fuck did he get out of that?" That would work. Even counters would make people's jaw drop because of his talent.
Yeah, I think he's good enough to where he can change his style and nobody's gonna be like, "Oh, why isn't he doing the fucking Superman landing off the top rope, backflip moonsault bullshit?" Like, because his fucking knees are broken. Leave him alone. Like, what do you mean? One thing I didn't like coming out of all this was all the people that were like somehow blaming fucking Dave Meltzer for this. They're like, that it was this weird contingent of people that were like, yeah, this is what happens when Dave only rates certain things high, and then people know that to get their names out there, they need to get good star ratings, so they do crazy shit they shouldn't be doing. And Dave had to go point to like multiple episodes of his own podcast and multiple issues of his own newsletter where he literally says, yeah, like I talked to Ospreay backstage. I told him to slow the fuck down. I told him stop doing all this shit when you're so young. You're not gonna be able to do anything when you're older. Like, look at some of the older guys in your industry. Just chill out a little bit. You don't need to do all this. So he's been telling people that for the longest time, but somehow he still gets blamed for what people are choosing to do because they think that they're choosing to do it to work for a fucking star rating from him. It's so weird.
I think like the weirdest thing to me is like clearly he's choosing to do it on his own free will, right? Because like everyone knows who Mick Foley is. Everyone can see how Mick Foley walks to the ring even later on in his career, let alone today. And all he was doing was elbow drops from the fucking apron to the floor. That was his big move, right? That was his. I mean, he did crazy shit, don't get me wrong, with like the barbed wire and all that stuff. But like, as far as like actual bumps, until the Hell in a Cell, that was like his big thing. So when he got thrown off the Hell in a Cell, we're not talking about, he didn't get thrown off the Hell in a Cell at every pay-per-view. So that was just a one-time thing. We're talking about a dude like Ospreay and AJ and Omega who are doing that shit all the time. Bumps, big bumps like that. If you're looking at Mick Foley and seeing how he turned out, you already know in your head that you're going to have to fucking either slow down or you're going to be in the same situation. Even guys that fucking didn't have huge movesets or anything like that, like your Kevin Nashes or your Sids or, I mean, they're tall guys, obviously, but even the simplest of fucking movesets, like the Hogans, he had to have how many back surgeries from a fucking leg drop? Matt Hardy looks like he can barely walk because he did a middle rope leg drop all the time. Like, there's clearly evidence, enough evidence that these guys know what they're getting into. It's definitely not Dave Meltzer's fucking fault. Even if he didn't tell him to slow down, it's not Dave Meltzer's fault because he's giving it good ratings.
Well, the thing about that is too, when I first saw people saying, oh, well, it's because they know that he'll only give them a good rating if they do a bunch of like crazy, like flipping spots and like dangerous dives and shit like that. And I'm like, bro, Ishii has like 6 or 7 5 or higher matches, and they're not with like Ospreys. They're with like Shibata. They're with Hanma. They're with Okada, Goto. I think the one that he had at the G1 with John Moxley got 5 stars. So like, these are not matches that he's having with people who do a bunch of flippy shit, and he's definitely not somebody that does a bunch of flippy shit. So you can't be like, oh yeah, well they're injuring themselves for Dave Meltzer's star rating because Dave only rates flippy shit high. You're out of your mind.
Hey, let's talk about something that these fans that are complaining would know about, right? What happened at Clash at the Castle? Your favorite match of the year? Gunther and Sheamus. How many flips were in that match?
1.
How many stars did they get?
I don't remember.
It was 5.
Okay.
He gave it 5 stars.
Yeah.
So like, to say in a vacuum that Dave only rates those certain types of matches with high star ratings is asinine, because there's plenty of evidence where it's literally a brawler versus a fucking brawler. If the fucking match is good, it doesn't matter the style or the clash of styles. If it's a good match, he rates it high. Yes, there's an element of personal intrigue value that he has because it's an opinion-based star rating. He's not the know-it-all, be-it-all of fucking star ratings. But you can't say that he only rates a certain thing high and then in the next breath fucking say, well, Meltzer's ratings don't matter. So how does it matter enough to Will Ospreay that Will Ospreay's killing himself, but you're on the other hand saying that, oh, Meltzer's ratings don't matter? You can't have it both ways, dude.
What they're saying is that it matters to Will, and so Will's behavior is based on trying to earn that, even if they don't personally see value.
But by acknowledging that Dave Meltzer's ratings matter to Will Ospreay, aren't you in turn then being contradictory towards what you're saying all the time, that they don't matter?
Their point of view is that they know better. So their argument would be, well, I know it doesn't matter, but Will doesn't because he's only in the industry.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I know.
That's one of the dumbest things. Like, yeah, I know. I mean, I get what you're saying, but they're stupid. All right. That's the last topic here. But I either hope he either goes. I mean, actually, I wouldn't mind seeing him in any of the 3. Honestly, usually we're on here and I'm talking about, oh, he should go here. He should definitely go here with the Jay White thing. Oh, this just makes too much sense for him not to do this. Stuff like that. But Ospreay, I think he could really just go anyway, and either he could stay in New Japan, he could go to AEW, or he could go to WWE in this case. And if he's really going to slow down his stuff like he said, I think he's going to succeed in either company, no matter what, if he does do that. And I would actually go out of my way to go see what he does in WWE. In Jay White's case, I don't know if I would have gone to go see I got to watch it anyway because of the fucking podcast, right? But like, if I didn't have the podcast, I don't know if I would have gone with Jay White to see what he did against The Miz in WWE. Will Ospreay might be a different animal. I think I would go out of my way to see what he did in WWE, honestly.
Yeah, me too, actually. I'd be curious if they ever book anything with the Seth Rollins shit, which you would think that they have to. They would build on whatever prior animosity from Twitter shit or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff they could do with Ospreay.
Hey guys, did you like that video? If so, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can also catch full episodes of the MonsterCast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. And you can also catch us live every Sunday on Twitch. All links in the description below, along with some sweet merch from yours truly, the MonsterCast. Deuces.